Tim Bucking Obsessed Palmer. Welcome back to the podcast. I think this is the third time you're on. Had you on over the summer and the end of last year, I believe you were on. Yeah. So you want to introduce yourself to the listeners a little bit and to Ethan, because I don't think Ethan's been on a podcast with you on. No, I think it's the first time we got to talk to you.
Yeah, I don't believe we've ever met. Like I said, I'm Tim Palmer. Do a little bit of hunting, a little bit of fishing, a little bit of just about anything. I kind of wear a lot of different hats depending on what time of year it is.
Yeah. I mean, you get after it in the whitetail woods. You get after it on the pond, on the ocean, on the lake. You know, whatever you want to get after, you get after it. And I think that's what's most intriguing about it, because I just listened to the Truth on the Stand. I got like halfway through that one with you on it. And man, it was it made you really think, like, of how you like balance everything with like, you know, you don't like fully engulfed in whitetails, fully engulfed in duck or fishing or, you know, triathlons like you guys are talking about, but it's like you mix it all together. Like you need to take the healthy break. And I think that's what Ethan and I discussed last episode, which would have been last week's episode as podcast land drops. But it's like, you know, trying to remove yourself from whitetails is very good, right? Like remove yourself from anything that can be quote unquote addicting. So I think that was cool. So I enjoyed that episode with you guys talking about that. And, dude, you had an amazing season this year. I think like you had a great season, especially the biggest buck to date. But before we get to those two buck, let's jump into your PA season itself.
Yeah.
So what was that like?
PA this year was wild, man. Honestly, like if you've listened to the other ones that I've been on, we've talked about, you know, I hunt public, I hunt a lot of permission spots. One thing I was really focused on this year, probably more than anything, was getting more permission spots. Just more so, not even for me, but for my family. You know, I hunt with a lot of people, and, you know, now I've got two nephews that are bow hunting. They're 16 and 12. I've got my wife, I've got my dad, I've got my brother-in-law, my sister, buddies of mine that don't get to get out in the woods very often. And, you know, I'm kind of have become somewhat of that guy that, you know, I have some friends that, you know, a select few that hit me up and be like, dude, I'd love to get out, but like, you know, I only have this one weekend, you know, off this month. Like, is there a chance we could get out? And I love to do that because I'm very blessed with my career path, my life choices, I guess you could say, with my business and what I do. I'm able to get out a lot, and I'm able to have that time to put in more work than, you know, a lot of people. And I don't mean that as like, oh, I'm better than anybody else, but like, just I'm blessed to have that time. And so this year, one of my biggest things was last year I had a very similar season in where I wound up hunting with a lot of people, but unfortunately a lot of my spots dried up quick within the first couple weeks of season, and I couldn't even find a dang doe to shoot, you know. I mean, I killed my buck and did those things, but like real quick, fast, and in a hurry, I couldn't find deer. Like I had some permission spots that I had, you know, really counted on for being able to take people or whatever. And those spots, just by the 10th of October, I couldn't find a deer on them. You know, it was other pressure, other people hunting the same pieces. A lot of my public land had gotten really beat up. And I was, at that point, I didn't have a buck tag either. So I was like, whatever, you know.
Yeah.
And so I really wanted to focus this year on finding new spots. And I put a ton of work in this summer. And I think total, I probably landed close to 1,800 acres of,
wow.
Yeah, between probably 8 or 10 properties that I got. And some of them were 4-acre spots. Some of them were 300-400 acre spots, you know, and a lot of them had other hunters, you know, it wasn't landed exclusive permission, but I just kind of went on a mission to find that. And so a lot of my year, I had no intentions of like trying to even kill a deer and like kill a buck in PA for myself. I was like, screw that. Like, I'm just going to hunt. I'm going to take Meg. I'm going to take the boys. I'm going to just really enjoy that part of it. I knew once November hit, it was going to be balls to the wall. That was my time. And I was like, I'm fine with that. You know, I just had a gut feeling that my November was going to be really good. So I was like, I'm not too worried about October, you know. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I had two specific spots that wound up just becoming stupid. Like the one spot was it's like an urban farm-ish spot. And I had 5 different bucks that started showing up consistently that were all, I mean, the smallest one was maybe 120 and the biggest one was pushing high 140s. And they were all the time. Like it was just this little drainage that was between ag. And then there was it was actually a factory that owned like 600 acres that was unhuntable. And bucks were just traveling between. And I threw a camera up down there, and you know, every freaking morning there was a shooter coming through. One of the 5 was coming through within, I mean, seconds of shooting light. Like, it was ridiculous, but they would cut through that creek bottom, cross a railroad track and go into the factory land. And I could, you know, so like it was kind of perfect. I ended up hunting that spot. I think it was 22 mornings in a row. I hunted that spot. My gosh. That because I could literally just slip right down the railroad tracks. It dropped down about 30 feet into this creek bottom, and there was a big deadfall that was right on the edge of the bank that went down into the creek bottom. And it was 40 yards across the creek bottom that these bucks were traveling. And so I hunted that spot. I could slip in every morning. The sun was right behind me, so my thermals were pulling up every day. I mean, almost every time I was in there, I had deer in front of me. 5 different times. This is the crazy part. I had that cell camera down there, and 5 different times, y'all, I would usually get there about probably between half hour, 45 minutes before shooting light, because it was just such an easy access spot. And 5 different times this season, I had one of those bucks walk within 15 yards of me while I'm on the ground. And my phone goes off, and I get a picture of them. And I can literally hear them breathing. They're so close, walking right below that fallen tree. The trail went right in front of that deadfall, and I couldn't see my pins. You know, it was insane. But I was, sooner or later, one of these suckers has got to screw up. You know, one of them's got to check a scrape for an extra 4 minutes, and he's going to come through in shooting light. And I mean, I can show you the pictures. Like there was one morning, I mean, it was that the one buck, he was probably 100 and high 130s, 140s, 9. I mean, he came to 12 yards on me and just stood there for probably 5 minutes in the dark. And I didn't know what it was until after he moved on. And sure enough, there he was, beautiful. Got a picture of him standing there, you know. So it was like it wound up being a circus real fast, because I was still working a lot, you know. So I would just go. I knew I had like an hour to hunt. They were either going to come through or they weren't. And so I just told my wife, I'm like, I'm gonna be there. And of course, there was 3 days in October that one of those bucks daylighted. 2 were Sunday mornings. Of course. Can't make that up. And the one. I had one of the big 9-pointers run a doe right into me on October 21st, and I did wind up shooting him. And it was kind of a crappy deal. He was quartered to me. I was on the ground. He came running right in, and looking back, I probably rushed it a little bit. Like, I'm confident in that shot. I mean, it's 31 yards, something like that. And in the moment, I drew, and he stepped into the opening, and I was like, send it. And looking back, his doe had worked probably 20 yards to my left, but he was gonna, the line, the trail he was on, he was gonna keep coming. He had no clue I was there.
Yeah.
He was gonna keep coming, go to that doe, and I would have probably had a clearer, better, whatever you want to call it, shot. But I've just learned over the years, I've done this too long, and I've been in too many situations that they come in, especially if he would have just been walking, I 100% waited.
Yeah.
But
Right.
when he came in running a doe, I'm like, it takes 1 second for that doe to take off up the creek, and he goes from standing there to dead run in 3 seconds, and I never get another shot opportunity. And I ended up shooting. He was quartered to me, and as I shot, he kind of like pushed off weird and ducked, and I ended up shooting him. The arrow went right in front of both shoulders, just right through the neck meat. And I originally thought that I hit him like this frontal and like went up in the cavity, and it didn't. And I wound up getting a picture of him like 10 days later, and you could see the hole in his neck, and he was fine. But so that was kind of crazy. And that took up a lot of my time as far as my morning hunts. But then I also had an evening spot that I had this one really cool buck that kept showing up, and I hunted that spot, I think 16 or 17 nights, same deal. Like, it was super easy access, little pinpoint that I could slip into. I saw him, I want to say 4 or 5 different times that I wound up seeing him in daylight. Like the one night I crawled into that spot at 4:15, and it was 74 degrees it was the day after I hit that one, the first one. Next day, I'm like, well, I'm going to at least go check if this buck's around, because I hadn't been in there in a little while. And I hadn't been in there in a couple days. Went in there, sure enough, first thing I see, I get set up, I'm on the ground, and there's like a 60-yard strip of cut beans, or standing beans at the time, between a strip of like a hedgerow and then like a real thick patch of like 4 acres of woods.
Yeah.
And I think we've talked about that property because I've had big bucks in there every year. Really hard to kill because it's like 4 acres, and like they're hard to get in on.
Yeah.
I was like, I should glass that real quick. And I just pulled up my glasses. The first thing I see is his rack standing there, and he's probably 10 yards inside the woods. And he wound up coming out and worked right past me at like 65 yards. And that was the last night I saw him. I never saw him again. It was weird. He walked right down the field edge, disappeared, never got another picture of him. I don't know if somebody killed him. I don't know if what happened to him. That property is real weird. They show up for a few days and then they're gone.
Yeah, that's what you said last time too. They show up for a couple days and then they're gone, and
they're in there 4 or 5 days, maybe, and then they disappear. And the crazy part is like every year for the last 3 years, I've had a mature deer. I mean, this deer was probably same deal, mid 130s, really nice deer, huge body, mega body. He was probably a 4.5-year-old. Shows up for 5-6 days, maybe. Weird. And I mean, it's crazy because it's the same deal. I know there's a lot of other hunters around. Nobody hunts that specific little piece that I have, but I know on all sides of him, there's a lot of hunters. And I just don't know if those deer wind up getting shot. I've never figured out where they go, because that's 3 years in a row now that I've had a big one show up for 5 or 6 days and never seen him again.
And it's not like this. It's not like the same buck. It's like a different buck. You think every single time?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Man,
100.
I wonder why they like that spot for only,
It's-
4 or 5 days. That's something.
yeah, that is very interesting.
You got to you narrowed it down after all these years. You know when they're going to show up, or no? Is it just random every year?
It's funny because every year I throw a well, I just got cell cameras last year for the first time, but this year I was like, the last 2 years I've had a camera in there, and before this year, and every year about October 15th to 20th, I'll have a buck show up. And last year, same deal. It was October 21st, I think, because it was the day that I was driving to Ohio when I killed my Ohio buck, and I had a massive, real tall, clean 9-pointer show up, and he was there that day, and then he was there. He bopped in and out till about the the 29th. That was the last time I saw him, and I didn't have a buck tag, but I was trying to get one of my other buddies in there to kill him, and it sucked because they came, he was there, but I couldn't find anybody to hunt him. Like it would be like a Monday morning. I'd see him going into that patch of woods, and I'm like, dude, we got to be in there tonight. Like we need to, he's going to come back out of there tonight.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, oh, sorry, dude, I can't, I can't. And then like, I can hunt tomorrow. And I'm like, he may not be there tomorrow. And we wind up hunting him the next day. We sit there all day and he never shows up. And then the next day he shows back up. It was just, it's stupid how they do on that piece. But so, yeah, that was pretty much my October really was spent between, and then I hunted I was hunting that creek bottom spot a lot in the mornings. I was hunting with my nephews and Meg and other people in the evenings. So, I wound up this year. I got Carter one, I got Cody one, I got Meg one, and I got my buddy Paul one.
Okay.
So we killed we had 4 first timers that killed with their bow this year that I filmed, which was super, super cool. So
I saw, I just watched your nephew Cody. I watched his, and I watched Paul, his buck. I watched those 2 on your channel. Like that was Paul's first. Was his first buck or first buck with a bow?
First deer with a bow. He's only ever killed a couple bucks and only maybe 4 or 5 deer with a rifle. Yeah. But it was his first bow kill ever. And so his wife is best friends with my wife. And so then when we got married, we kind of all became friends. And, he would ask me, hey, you got any tips? I've been hunting for a long time. And he actually didn't even ask to hunt with me. He was like, he just kind of picked my brain, on how, because he hunts all public. They live out near Pittsburgh. And I just told him, I was like, dude, like, get these 2 areas of doe tags and take 2 days off work. Give me a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and we'll get you a doe. Like, we will get you a deer somehow. Like, we'll find deer. And he was like, okay, perfect. So he actually came up and helped me hang a couple stands for the boys and Meg this year in the summer. And that was just one of those meant to be moments that was probably one of the most special hunts I've ever had. Someone else that wasn't like my dad or like someone me. Like that was just a cool moment, man. Like it almost like that was a very, I feel like, centering moment for me, because I think we've talked about it before. Like I get so caught up in chasing that big buck or doing this or doing that or killing giants. And man, when I see a 60-inch, 70-inch 8-point that so many people would just not even look at. But to him, dude, he could have killed the world record, and I don't think he could have been any more excited. Like it was just the coolest moment ever for him. Like that dude lost it. Like it was cool.
That is probably one of the coolest moments to see someone like well, like Ethan, when we went out to Ohio, like the first buck you got on public with
Mhm.
the bow, it's like that's with the crossbow. It's like you were extremely pumped. Like I saw him at his highest of highs and lowest of lows and then highest of highs again, like
Yeah.
the roller coaster ride. But like still to be there to be there in the same piece with you and to like see that moment, it's like that's unforgettable.
Oh yeah. I mean, to have those feel like even like when you shot yours in archery season,
Mm-hmm.
I know this was a Friday. Like I got off, like I worked third shift, so I got off work. I told him to call me because I knew he was hunting that day, and I didn't care how tired I was. Like as soon as he said, "Yo, I shot one," but I was like, "I'm on my way." I didn't care. Like I just got out of the shower. I was finding random clothes just to throw on. I said, "Let's do."
Yeah.
Like I was as excited, and I still. It doesn't matter if it's a buck, a doe. I get as excited for someone else when they shoot one
Mhm.
as I get excited for when I get
Mhm.
one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that, like, to me, I've been very, very blessed to kill some great bucks and kill some, every year somehow it happens that I kill a couple, and it's like, I love it. I love that probably more than just about anything outside my family, as far as an exponential love of
Mm-hmm.
something, like,
Yes.
outside
Yep.
my family, like it's
I hate
what
my family. I love hunting.
it's what I love most. But man, like that feeling of like putting that together for someone else and just even giving someone that opportunity,
Mhm.
I think that gives me so much more joy than, killing big deer is a different high. But it's like that to me is, whether it's ducks or turkeys or deer or whatever, like setting somebody else up, like I love that so much. Like it is just such a cool thing. And I just feel so blessed to do that, like it's like the most, I don't know, it's a different feeling for me to be like, dude, like not in almost like, oh, I did this for you, but just like, I love that because there was people that did that for me over the years. They
Oh,
helped
yeah.
me out as a kid or set me up on a deer, and like my grandpa or my dad or friends of ours, or, help me accomplish something that I was going after. And so if I can be a part of that for somebody else, man, it don't get no better.
Yeah, I mean, my dad, like, I can't tell you how many times I sat with my dad, and he was like, "There's a doe, shoot it." Like, he has a gun
Yeah.
right beside me. He saw the doe. Like, he could have easily shot that
Oh,
before you tell me about it. Like,
Yeah.
but like, I think that's where kind of it starts at. Like, if your dad does that for you, or whoever got you into hunting, like that's kind of how you're going to be too. Like if I was out with Ethan, like we both had buck tags, I would probably want Ethan to shoot the buck over me unless it was like a monster buck, right?
Yeah. I really just sit there for a second. Let me shoot this. You get
yeah.
the next one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, I mean, I think that's where it resonates from, and that's like it is a really cool feeling to have that happen and like to be there for everything. I think the best one thus far is your nephew Cody. Like his
Oh,
like he was drawn back on like that one doe busted. He got down. He was so disappointed, and like there was like a whole herd of doe that ran off, and then that one.
like that. And that's one of them spots, dude. That was a whack job spot that, like, I went to real quick. Don't let me get on too many rabbit trails tonight. You know that.
Yeah.
But like that was a spot that I went to. I have permission on a farm. I wanted to get permission on the farm next door. It's like 200 acres.
Yeah.
The guy, super nice dude. His nephew and his brother-in-law and his cousin, they all hunt. They're all big bow hunters. And he's like, man, I just can't. But whatever. We end up BSing for half hour. And I'm like, well, man, I appreciate it. Really appreciate your time. Thank you so much. I go to leave. And as I'm walking away, he goes, I tell you where you can hunt. And I'm like, okay. And he's like, it's a 5-acre strip. And I said, okay. He goes, you got a map? I said, yeah. He pulls it up. So I pulled up Onyx and he shows me this little, I mean, it's literally like a 5-acre little square rectangle along. I mean, it's where Cody shot his deer is like 60 yards off the road. Like it's
near cars.
yeah, it's literally just like this little strip that runs for about 500 yards. That's maybe 100 yards wide. Not even. I don't even know. It's not much. It's very small. And he's like, yeah, you should hunt it. I think there's deer in there. And he was like super cool old dude. He's like, here's my phone number. That's your spot to hunt. I know there's some other sons of bitches that hunt in there, but you can tell them to get out. And if anybody gives you a problem, you call me and I'll come kick their ass. You know, he's like the coolest.
Yeah.
And I was like, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And I walked in there and I mean, it was just torn up. I mean, there was more deer in that spot. I mean, to this day, like we've now killed 2 out of there and they're still, I mean, this afternoon I had 8 does bedded in front of the camera. Like,
Oh man,
they're just living there. It's just, there's a little row of houses and another row of houses. And it's literally just a pine thicket and red brush swampy area in between. And these deer just, I mean, it looks like highways going through there.
Wow.
And so that was a cool spot because I wound up being able to take Cody in there and, you know, we hunted that hard. Like we hunted it probably 6 to 7 days, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And any evening that we were in there, you know, the wind was right. We were in there and I ended up, I had so much footage of hunting with him. Like even in that video, I just had to do like the first day, cause the first day was insane.
Yeah.
You know, first time hunting with a bow and he's at 4 different times, misses twice.
Yeah.
And it, you know, like we see 10 deer, like, and then every day that we hunted in there, we had deer on us. We just couldn't quite get it done. Mm-hmm. And then for him to just have that slam dunk right there, that was just perfect.
Now, what about, let's talk about your wife's deer for a second. Let's go to that because I mean, obviously that's your wife. So it's like, that means probably more to you than any of them really. I mean, how many years has she been hunting? Like, did she get into hunting because of you, right?
Yeah. She got into hunting. Meg had shot competition archery in high school. She was an archer, like her dad hunted and she shot for 4-H or something like that. And she was a great shot, but just never got into the hunting side of things. Well, then I do a little hunting. So we she was like, oh, I'm interested, you know, and this was her 3rd year with a bow that she's hunted.
Okay.
And so the first year she didn't get any shots. Last year she wound up missing one. Well, she hit it, but just like literally skipped it off the top of its back. Like it just had a scratch on the back. It just ducked her arrow. So this year she was really excited. She really worked on getting her poundage up. I think now she's shooting closer to like she's 60, 61 pounds. Okay. So she's really improved in her poundage. And that's a crazy story. In fact, I still have to edit that because we have a bunch. I want to kind of go back and that's going to be a little bigger production to put together for the last 3 years, kind of the whole story and whatever. But yeah, that was a awesome hunt. In fact, the crazy part is so this year Cody missed twice that first night. And then he, on his 3rd shot, he killed one. And Egg had the same deal happen. Only it was, so the night before I hunted with Cody, or let me get this right. It was like 2 nights. I forget. It was within the same week that Meg and I had gone hunting. And Meg had killed hers, I think 2 nights before I took Cody for the first time.
Okay.
So that was the reason why I had him shooting so low, was because the first night Meg and I hunted, she had 2 does in the same night I'm talking duck that freaking far.
Oh,
And got right from it 20 yards.
Yeah.
Jumped her string, real still, calm situation. And I had her holding low. And I mean, in the footage, when you roll it back, like she was literally shooting for the armpit, like the almost belly, and they still ducked her. Like, I don't know.
jeez.
Shooting a little slower setup, but like, it was crazy. So then the next night, you know, she had missed twice the first night, and she was a little bummed. Like, she was like, what am I doing? This is now 2 years in a row. This is my third miss, you know, and I'm shooting exactly where I need to shoot. She's such a perfectionist. Like, she shoots great. And she's like, my arrows are going exactly where I need them to. The deer is just not there anymore, you know, like, And so sure enough, I honestly didn't know if she was going to want to hunt after that first, well, I guess it was like probably the fourth night that we hunted that she got those shots. And she was just like, I don't even know, like, whatever. And so wound up the next night, she kind of woke up the next morning, and I think we both went to work, and we got back about the same time, and we had plenty of time. And she's like, I'm going hunting. Let's go hunting. Like, I'm not going to they're not getting the best of me or whatever. And so I was like, perfect, let's go. So we went, and sure enough, it wound up being a button buck, but it was like kind of a weird deer, because it was like generally a button buck is a little fawn, you know, a 60-pound deer, where this like 100-pound looked like a 1.5-year-old, 2-year-old buck, but all that was nubs. So it was like when I first spotted it, I was like, oh, here comes a big doe,
right?
And came in, and I'm like, oh wait, that's like, it's got nubs, but it's got a way bigger body. And like, I was like, it's there, shoot it, you know. And for your first one, I don't care. And sure, and she made a great shot, like it was just a touch back. She ended up hitting like one lung liver diaphragm, but deer went maybe, I don't know, maybe 60 yards, and still, and I thought like, oh shoot, like this. And I told her, like, you'll hear it in the video, I'm like, all right, we may have to give him some time, you know, we're probably gonna have to just sneak out of here and come back. Might take him a little while. And all of a sudden I looked over, and I just see him like doing this, and I'm like, hang on. Turn the camera, all of a sudden it just goes and just like laying there kicking, and I'm like, it's dead. Like, that was don't have to wait for anything, you know. And so it was really cool. It was it's super interesting for me to see her way of like, she loves it, she gets excited about it, but she's not like up there like freaking the hell out, like shaking and screaming. Like, she's just, that was so cool, like, that's so neat, like, that's awesome, you know. She gets like super excited, but like at the same time, it's not probably the same as like you or I would do it. But it's been a really fun journey for us to hunt together, and I think I've said it before, but it truly has given me a different view of hunting, you know, to be able to now do it with her, and now with the boys, to be able to kind of bring them along and mentor them along, and just really find the love of just enjoying shooting a 60-pound fawn. Like, it's just really fun, you know, for them. And I love that. Like, it's kind of simplified the world and just brought me back to reality a lot.
Yeah, you definitely need that sometimes, of like, just like, man, it's not all about the inch, it's not all about the biggest body. It's like, literally, it's about going out there, enjoying nature, and enjoying what's put in front of us, and just enjoying it. Because it's only, you don't know how many times you're going to be able to go out there and hunt still. Like, it's like, you could be done hunting this year, like it could be over like that. So like, why not just enjoy it how you want to enjoy it. Like if someone enjoys just chasing after a big buck or the inches, like let it be, you know, that's their enjoyment. That's what gets them off. That's what they enjoy. But like
Yep.
if you enjoy going out there shooting the first thing that walks by you that's legal, enjoy it.
Yeah.
Like it's you know, there's so much stuff controlled by other people in this world now. Like why control what someone else wants to do?
Yeah, and I think that's my biggest thing is like, and I love giving that opportunity. Like I sit there and I mean, I'd be lying if I said that, you know, even editing Paul's video,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like editing Paul's video now this week, editing Cody's video, like even just editing it. And when I'm putting music to it and, you know, drawing kind of the emotion out of the moment and like kind of putting the soundtrack to everything. And like, dude, there's so many times I will sit there and just bawl like a baby while I'm rewatching those moments because
Yeah.
I'm just like, overwhelmed with like that moment for them. And I'm so like I don't know, like it's just like I know for a fact that that kid is going to watch that video for the rest of his life and remember that moment that we had, or that Paul, who had been hunting for 18 years with a bow and never killed one. I mean, when I talked to him a while ago, he's like, dude, I've probably watched that video 100 times. Like, thank you so much for in there to capture that. For like, not that it wouldn't have been any more special if I'd have done it without it being on camera, but like, when you have that to then go back and rewatch, it just burns that memory into your brain, and it gives you a whole nother appreciation for it that I think is just something beautiful that I really enjoy.
Yeah, that's what I enjoyed about this year. Filming, like getting like I watched each one of my videos like multiple times just because like you can relive that moment
Yeah.
over and over and over again. Like obviously I didn't do the Ruck Camp one yet, but that'll drop
the big one.
That'll drop next season.
Next season.
That's
a little
one.
bigger of a film, I think.
That's a longer one.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's even times like when I take my niece out fishing, obviously I bring a rod. Obviously I want to fish, but there's times where it's like I'll just stand, like she might be 20, 30 yards, you know, down the bank from me. I'll just sit there and watch her and not even be fishing just because I'm curious. I just want to see what she's doing, how she's doing. She catches a fish. My rod's out of the water. I'm over helping. I mean, she can do it herself. I mean, I kind of forced her to this coming year because she would always have me take the fish off the hook for her. I kind of forced her to do it this year, and she did it, so we're okay. But I don't. It's just like, yeah, I can go out fishing whenever I want, you know, by myself, and I do. I go fishing a lot, you know, come spring into summer. But man, just having that, you know, taking her out, and I mean, I'm the only one that does take her out. So to see her fish, I was like, man, this feels great just to sit there and see her just be at peace.
Yeah. Well, I think the world is such a, you know, a shit show. And it's,
yeah, God,
like and I do take it for granted sometimes, the amount of time that I spend in the woods and on the water and I know that, but then like, I think that God has given me the abilities, the knowledge, the locations, the boat, you know, the whatever, you know, to not use that just for me. I think he's given me that to allow me to have a buddy of mine call me and say, hey man, I've been having a really rough week. Like, what's the chance we could go fishing? Yeah. And I say, dude, my schedule's just got cleared.
Yep.
Get your butt here and let's go fish.
Yeah.
You know, or let's go spend some time in the woods together. And I think that's something that I'm very thankful for. And I never took that for granted. Like it's something that I really enjoy doing. And like I said it in Paul's video, like, dude, I could never kill another deer myself. And I would be perfectly happy if I have moments like that where I'm setting somebody else up and giving them. And I think as long as I keep my priorities there, I can't go wrong. Like, and I don't like, because it's just that I don't know, I guess a selfless mindset of so easy to get caught up in, oh, I gotta kill this big buck, I gotta kill this big buck, and then losing sight of the other stuff that really matters. And I think that it's been insane because I've had probably the 2 best seasons I've ever had in my life.
Yeah.
And I focused less last year than I had ever focused on myself killing a buck.
Mm-hmm.
That was kind of where my whole priorities changed and all that shifted for last year's season. And then I was blessed beyond belief. And then this year I almost went into it with even a more like selfless attitude and like, I just want to give.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was blessed even more than I could have expected this year. And it's like, I don't want to say that I'm doing these things for other people just so I can get blessed, but I truly believe when you live that life of giving and being selfless, like I think that karma or God or however I believe it's God, but you know, whatever you want to believe, that's on you. But I believe the blessing comes when you know.
Yeah, I mean, I fully agree. Now, this question is going to contradict pretty much everything that we just said.
Oh no. Oh no, Cody. Why don't ruin the moment, Cody. Come on.
So, as hunters, we go to the season very positive, just like we were just literally just talking about. But there's a moment when you start getting stressed about not getting a deer down or not getting a buck. Like you feel it, no matter how like positive you want to be, no matter how like, you know, going out with other people, like you can help them get, but like in the end, you still want something. You still want to get something, right? Like in PA, we'll focus on PA because you went out of state twice. But when do you like hypothetically, let's say, like, when do you start feeling that pressure? Because like I know when I start feeling it, but like, and I don't know when you start feeling anything, but like Tim, when do you start feeling that pressure? Like, oh, I gotta put something down.
Yeah. I think this year, honestly, this year I never really felt it until probably first week in November was when I felt it. And it wasn't even a like we'd already killed 3, 4, 5. You know, I'd already filmed or killed. I killed it. I did wind up shooting a doe the one morning, and that was a cool hunt. I shot her at like, well, she came into like 10 yards on the ground, and then I wound up shooting her, and it was cool. But I think then I started to feel that we killed deer, but I really wanted to kill. Then it kind of caught up to me. I had gone into the season with the mentality of I don't really care if I kill a buck in PA, but then all of a sudden I started knowing there was some big ones around, and then I was like, all right, sooner or later something's got to give. And I think that was probably about the second week in November would have been when I kind of hit that wall of like, oh, November's here, and I could not find a buck in November. Like I couldn't find anything. I was on so many big deer. I was on probably 5 or 6 different Pope and Young class deer October. And then after I hit that one. And then after I had the encounter with the big one that I didn't get and he disappeared, I didn't have another rack buck show up anywhere close to daylight. I didn't see another rack buck. Nothing for like weeks.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go to Ohio. I was going to go to Indiana, but I just got stubborn and I was like, sooner or later, I'm going to kill one here and I'm just going to stay out. So I hunted, I hunted every day of the PA season until I left for Missouri. And at that point, it started to get real grindy. And I was just like starting to not frustrated because I was still seeing a lot of deer. I just wasn't seeing any deers. But it definitely started to get to me a little bit. And that's why I killed the one in Missouri, because I had no intention of going to Missouri.
Yeah.
That was the whole story there, was because and this is probably something that would be one of my biggest takeaways from this year, was if you have the ability, if you're stuck in a rut, don't get married to those spots that
Mhm.
you, because just mix it up, hit the reset button, because that's where, like, I mean, it speaks for itself, because in the last however many years, I don't know, I think I've killed 4 MPA. In the last 5 years, I've killed 4 MPA, and I've killed 5 out-of-state bucks.
Yeah.
And every time I'm grinding away in PA, I get married to my spots. I'm grinding. And like last year, I'm like, screw it. I'm going to go to a new spot in Ohio. I've never been there before. I've never hunted in Ohio. I go and I kill one in 12 hours and come home the same day. Like,
Yeah.
and it just, because the way I function, I'm best when I'm not thinking. I have no predetermined ideas or scouting or pictures or whatever. I just pick a spot on a map. I speed scout it as I'm hunting. I hunt through. I look at what I see and I adjust instinctively. And I didn't, like, I was sitting there, the Missouri buck. I don't know if you want to get into that yet.
Yeah, let's get into it. Yeah, let's
If this-
jump right into it.
Acts on my frustrations. But so yeah, like, it was, I was originally to be in Kansas around the 10th was when they had told me to be ready to head to Kansas. And they ended up not have killing, the guys from Whitetail Adrenaline had not killed, Tanner hadn't killed in Iowa. So he still had my camera guy. And so I was like, shoot, well, this is going to go longer than I expected. So I'm like, screw it. I'll just stick it out in PA. I'll just kill one in PA. So I had been grinding at that point pretty hard since the 24th of October. I hadn't really had a shooter to go after. So it had been like 14 days or something that I'd been hunting without finding a shooter.
Yeah.
And I forget what day it was, but it was a Tuesday. And I finally got the date that I was to be. They were like, all right, you need to be in Kansas on Saturday to check into the Airbnb. You're Ethan, my camera guy, we'll meet you there, whatever. And so it was Tuesday. And I'm like, all right, well, I'll probably leave like, I don't know, Thursday night or something, drive out Thursday, Friday, get there Saturday, whatever. And I'm sitting there, I'm trying to figure out where I want to hunt in the morning for Wednesday morning. And it's like 8:00 at night. And Meg just looks at me and she goes, just go somewhere. And I'm like, what do you mean? And she's like, just go anywhere. Where do you go? You drive through a lot of states to get to Kansas.
Yeah.
Just go somewhere. That's where you're at your best. That's where you're at your best. I don't know why you're still here dicking around with Pennsylvania. Just go somewhere else. And I was like, you're right. So I looked at my route. I was like, I drive through Indiana, Illinois, Ohio, but I haven't hunted Missouri before. I've always wanted to hunt Missouri, so maybe I should just hunt Missouri. I have an old rodeo buddy that lives out there. It was near the route, and so I called him up that night, and I'm like, yo, can I come sleep on your couch? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, do you have any public land near you? He's like, I think so. He's like, I've never hunted it, but I think there's a couple little pieces. And I'm like, cool. I will see you tomorrow night. And I literally hung up the phone, got up, and started packing my truck at like 9:00 at night to leave for the next 2 weeks. And I'm like, whatever. And so I drove to Missouri, got up Wednesday morning, drove straight to Missouri, looked at these little pieces on the map, and was like, I'll start at this one. And I basically speed hunted that. It was only maybe 150 acres, 200 acres. But I kind of speed hunted that till about 1:00 that afternoon. Just, basically slipping along, covering ground, glassing, trying to just see what was there. And I think that could be a possible really good spot. I don't know. The wind was kind of shifty that day, and the way I wanted to hunt it, it didn't play out. So I was like, about 1:00, I had about a 40-minute drive to the closest piece of public. So I just got in the truck and drove there and wound up sneaking down through and found this river bottom, which it's very, very, very similar. Yeah. My brother, if you give me a river bottom that has any whitetails in it, and I'm pretty confident I can kill one there. And as soon as I saw it on the map, I started, as I'm driving there, don't Onyx and drive, by the way, but I'm professional. So I'm like looking at this spot and I'm like, oh, that's a river. And oh, that looks like a big river bottom swampy area. I'm like, that's my deal right there. So I got there, wind was perfect, started to access it. And sure enough, there was just tracks and scrapes and rubs and tons of sign. And I was like, all right, this is good. And I got down in that first, it was kind of a T. There was a big river that flowed east and west. And then there was a kind of a feeder stream that came down through the public. And then it went from the private down through the public into the big river. Okay. So it was basically T in the draw systems like this, like the big river and the bottom. And then there was like ag out on the private. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is just built for killing deer, you know?
Yeah.
So I started working down that creek, wind in my face, saw a couple bucks cruise. I saw 2 small bucks cruising. And I'm like, I need to get around, make a big loop around where I saw them. Maybe they were satelliting a buck, you know, whatever. So I make a big loop around. And anyway, I wound up, it was pretty grown up stuff in this river bottom. Like it was tall grass and trees. And I got around and there was one little flooded spot that I had to cross. It was like 10 yards that was open. And I'm like, if I can get to this deadfall on the little hill, I'll get there and I'll set up and I'll just glass this whole bottom for the evening and see what I'm working with for in the morning. Well, I get 10 yards across this open spot and here comes like a 130-inch 8-pointer walking right off the hill right at me. And I'm like, frick. So I like dropped to one knee. I'm like sitting there trying to just freeze. And he walked down to like 55 yards and wound up busting me because I'm sitting in the middle of an open spot, you know, but at that point. And anyways, come back in the next morning and got to that deadfall area that I was wanting to get to the night before. And man, that was just one of them to be deals. It was just crazy. Like, you know, you show up in there and it looked good. But right at first light, had a 6-pointer come down through, which if you ever hunt Missouri, for you listeners, if you ever hunt Missouri, it is 4 on a side, not 3 on a side. I did not know that.
Wow. I didn't think any other state had like an antler restriction like Pennsylvania did.
Yeah.
There's just 4 on a side, and I did not know that because I almost shot that 6-pointer.
Ooh, yeah, I probably would have. That would have. I would have sent one.
Well, yeah, I mean, I had 12 hours at that point to hunt. I literally had to leave Friday night, so I had already hunted Thursday. It was Friday morning, and I'm like, I gotta leave, you know, to hunt. So I'm like, I got 12 hours. But thank goodness I sat there and I'm like a mile back in here, and I don't kill them for the horns in this scenario, but I want to at least have a little something to be proud of for packing this sucker all the way out of here.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I'm going to wait. And I'm glad I did because I didn't realize that it was 4. So remember that if you ever hunt Missouri. But this buck works down and he walks by me at like 25 yards and goes up this hill into the cedar thicket. And I mean, it wasn't 10 seconds after I heard him stop walking. Like I couldn't hear him walking anymore.
Right.
And I hear walking again. And I'm like, oh, it's that little buck coming back. Well, the way I was set up, I was kind of on the slope going down into the creek bottom, about probably 10 yards up off the bottom of the creek bed. And I was just tucked in behind an oak tree, you know, where it was kind of a couple trees that I could tuck into and glass. And I was facing this way. Well, that deer had gone up probably like, I don't know, I guess it'd be like 5 o'clock, like 4 o'clock on the dial, you know, from me. And I quit hearing him walking. 2 seconds later, I hear him start walking. I think. I'm like, oh, that
Yeah.
freaking pointer's coming back. And I just turn like this. I've got my tripod here with my camera, my big camera, and my bow's over here. And I look, and at 23 yards, I just see a rack coming through the trees. And I'm like, oh, shoot. Like, this is not the 6-pointer.
Yeah.
And I'm facing this way. He's at 23, 24 yards and coming to me. And my tripod's here. I got to like shift over everything, turn 45 degrees, the whole 9 yards. And thank goodness he stopped right behind a tree for just half a second. And I was able to just shift everything over, swing my camera. And that was the wildest deal because so I made this GoPro mount, which if you're self-filming, I can send you the link because
I was actually going to ask about that because I was like, man, what is that? Like, I can't find anything that looks remotely. Disregard Ethan. He has a cold. You're muted.
I'm a mouth breather. I had a head cold on Friday. God, but this is like the remnants of it. So I am all mouth breather right now. So I apologize.
No, you're good. You're good. But that mount, so you know how they have like the GoPro mounts that just mount on the front of your head?
Yep.
Like the one you buy at Walmart.
Yeah.
Well, when you put your GoPro there, the bow's always in the way.
Yeah.
So what I did was I found this little piece, and I can send you the link to it. It's basically a motorcycle. It's something motorcycle angle mount. It's like $1.19 on this. And I bought it. And what it does is it allows you to hook that into the front of it's like a GoPro mount. And then you move the parts however you want. So I put it on my left side, and then basically the GoPro's right here so that then all the angles are perfect for everything. Like it's right down the bow. You can see everything great.
Yeah. We're going to need that.
But yeah, you're going to want that for sure.
It's cool. It's pretty cool. And so anyways, I had spray painted all that tan. My GoPro, the head mount, everything was all tan. And I was wearing my tan Whitetail adrenaline hat. And dude, that buck caught movement. And right as I hit record on my camera, he spotted me. And he looked like this, caught that movement, went, brrr, and just pinned his ears and came marching down that hill at me. Cool. I'm 1,000% positive that he smelled the other buck that had just gone through.
Oh, yeah.
He was looking, saw that thing sticking off my head with the tan hat on the ground, and said, in his mind, that's another buck. I smell him, I see him, I'm going to kick his ass.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, he walked in, and it was 10 steps to where I shot him the first time. And
oh my gosh,
it's crazy. Like it was nuts. Like
it was a cool video. It was.
Yeah, it was wild. It was. Yeah. I was pretty fired up because if you haven't watched the video, go watch it. But I shot him at 10 yards off the ground, and he was so smoked on the first shot. Like he was beyond dead. Mm-hmm. But he was so in shock. He ran out there to like 35, 38 yards. I don't even know. I never ranged it, but it was a little bit of a poke. And I literally he stopped. I swung the camera, grabbed another arrow and sent another one and just 12 ringed him. And he didn't go 30 yards. Like it was pretty cool.
Wow. Yeah. Jeez. Yeah. That was a really, really cool hunt, especially from the ground being that close. Like it would have been interesting to see like, okay, so like, if it was a 6-point and hypothetically you knew that it was 4 up on a side, I wonder how close he would have gotten to you thinking that, because I think he probably thought you were a buck. Like, I wonder how close he would have gotten to you before it's like, oh, this is not a buck.
Oh, you're not what I thought you were, and freak out and run off.
I think that deer, I mean, he was at 10 yards and like, there's a lot of people that are like, oh, I shot one at 10 yards, but when you're at 10 yards, that's real close on the ground. Like that's real close.
Yes.
And like, being that I was already at full draw in that position, and I would not have had to move.
Yep.
I think looking back, I probably could have let him walk. I think he would have walked into, I would have shot him point blank. Like, I think because even when I shot him, he was still coming.
Yeah.
Like, I shot him walking. He never even stopped. Like, he was just on a mission, man. Like, he was coming. And
wow.
I think looking back, I mean, obviously I wasn't waiting, but I was like, I think I could have shot him at about 2 steps if I'd have just let him keep coming.
Yeah, he was going to come close.
He was pretty fired up. He was on a mission. But that was after hunting as hard as I did. I think I said it in the video. I think it was like my 63rd sit.
Yes.
Wow.
So, from starting October 5th to November 6th, 15th, 14th or 15th, it was 63 hunts that I'd been on between morning and evening, and some of them were all day sits, so like I'd been going hard,
Mm-hmm.
and I couldn't, like, the whole time, anytime I would ever get frustrated, like, oh, hang on one second.
Oh,
there we go. We're good.
Okay.
Yep.
There we go.
My mom was trying to call me.
Mom.
Yeah. She'll probably call again, so get ready. She'll probably call. She'll try to FaceTime me. But yeah, it was a crazy moment. Like, I was so blown away by it. Like, just, I mean, you can see it in the video. I was freaking out pretty hardcore because I was just like blown away. And then to have it come together like that. But I felt like all year, whenever I would get back to your original question that started this 20-minute story, I think when I would it was almost like I would have to just center myself mentally. And I would go for a run, or I would go, I'd go swim at the Y, or I'd go, because that kind of just do something else.
Mm-hmm.
I would something else. Instead of getting in that mindset of, I gotta go.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I was still going, I would just take a morning and I would just not hunt, or I would do something different. I'd go do something with my wife, or I'd go hang out. And I would just be like, hey, listen, the process, trust the process. You've already been so blessed beyond belief this season. So hit the reset button for 5 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Pull yourself back. Don't feel like you have to be in the woods.
Yep.
Pull yourself back, center yourself, clear your head, and then go back at it, come at, go a different way. And I think that was, I hit that reset button and it happened in 14 hours of hunting in a different state,
Yeah.
Yeah, you had 60 plus sits. Is that your normal, like every year, or was that just a high year?
No, this is a low year.
That's low. Oh man.
Yeah.
You said like you had that reset where you go for a run, you do everything. It's like you do that and you're good, or is there ever at those times you're burnt out?
Oh
Because
yeah.
I know I get like 20 sits if I have to do that, and I'm like, I'm done. Like, I can't.
Yeah, 2 years ago, I had a really bad burnout. I went almost 100 days because I started in Wyoming in August. And I went Wyoming, Kentucky, and then right into Pennsylvania, and I hunted all the way straight through Pennsylvania, went straight to Indiana. That whole year, I mean, I hunted so hard, but the whole difference was my mindset. Where this year, I think I really just, I hunted a lot, but it was more, my mindset was different. I was still putting the hours in, but I wasn't, I have to. I'm like, oh, this is fun. I'm going to go do this, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to hunt with this person, or I'm going to hunt with my nephews. I think out of those 60 sits, I don't even know, probably 20 or 30 of those were with other people, filming someone else.
Yeah.
And so, like, I just found joy in that, just being out and doing those fun things. And I guess taking the pressure off. I think it's easier said than done. But I think over the last 3 years, this journey I've been on after that major burnout, because at that point, dude, I had like big bucks showing up on camera end of season after I got back from Indiana. And at that point I was 80 or 90 days in, and like, I couldn't even get my bow out of the case.
Yeah.
Drove to a spot and I knew there was deer in there. And it was like the last day of archery season. And I sat there in my truck for 2 hours and could not make myself get out of the truck. I was just, what am I doing? I am so like, why? I don't even want to be here.
Yeah.
Why am I doing this? But I was so, but my why was different. My why, I've got to kill this, because if I'm ever going to make it, or I'm ever going to be this big, whatever, I got to kill. I got to kill. I got to get a kill. I got to get a kill.
Yep.
And that was 100% the wrong reasons. And after that, like, that was when Meg and I had a lot of talks about it, and we're like, really broke it down and really changed my mindset. And then the last 2 years, I still hunt hard, but I haven't burnt out as bad. Like, I haven't burnt out. You know, I think that mindset change has just been big. And not everybody can, like, I don't say like, oh, I hunt this many days a year as like some like, oh, I'm this or that. Like, you don't have to don't go into next season, Ethan, being like, well, I gotta hunt 70 days here.
Tim does it.
I'm gonna do it.
If I don't get 60, I ain't good enough.
Yeah, exactly. And screw that. Like, Like, dude, like, go hunt your hunt. Like, that's my favorite new saying is hunt your hunt, man. Like, for me, I love this. I love going with other people. It's what I look forward to. It's what I eat, sleep, and breathe this time of year. But I also think that circles back around to why I'm able to go so hard is because I really don't even think about deer the other 10 months out of the year. You know, like, I mean, even right now, like, I'm probably going to try to go shoot something in late season with my other nephew. And I might try to shoot another doe or something. I don't know. I don't even know if I'll take my bow out. I don't know. But like, I'm so past that already. I'm like ready to shoot ducks, and I'm back to training every day for an Ironman this summer. And like, I'm totally disconnected. Like, I'm not even in deer brain right now.
Yeah,
I'm already watching fishing videos on YouTube. I've been doing that for the last. Like, I'm ready, because I was like, I'm not going out. Like, January, I'll go out. I'll take the shotgun out. I'll go try to shoot some squirrels in January, February. Then it's like, man, I'm ready. When's trout coming in? You know, and I'm ready for that.
Yeah, I'll take my flintlock out maybe once or twice if I can get it unloaded. But most of the time, I'm probably gonna be taking my dad's old bow out. I might take that out,
Cool.
and just try. Maybe I have a few. I have like 3 doe tags left. I might try and get one of that. It'd be cool to get it with one of them. But for the most part, I'm fine. I'm fine now. I got 3 deer down. I got my buck down. I think I'm good now. So transitioning from Missouri, then you had that you got them on Friday. Then you had to drive to Kansas with Whitetail Adrenaline. So like, now let's get into that, because that was the biggest buck of your life thus far. So like, I know you probably have a video that's coming out, or maybe it did come out. I'm not sure. I didn't see it on your channel.
I don't have anything out on. I won't have any of that footage or any of that. That's all Jared's. That we'll probably have to wait. It'll probably be 2.5 years till that one comes out. He films 2 years behind. So
makes sense. So
he's currently editing the next season to come out, but that's 2 years back. So it's in the works, but it'll be a little while.
And I think also, before we get into it, I'm gonna have to get a DVD player for out here in the studio.
Yeah,
because they only sell Whitetail Adrenaline DVDs.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna have to get one for they sell the DVD players at the show, right? All right.
Yeah.
I'm buying one this year.
There you go.
I'm buying one.
Get one.
All right. Now let's get to the buck.
So this hunt, I can't tell a lot of details, because being that it's encrypted, you know, because it's I don't want to say copyrighted. I can tell people the story, but I don't publicly share the whole story, because if you want to see it, you're gonna have to buy it. But
exactly,
that's the way his business works. But man, that was a crazy, crazy deal. So like drove out to Kansas, got there Saturday night.
Mm-hmm.
Sunday, the weather was really nice. And we were able to cover a lot of ground, saw some deer, whatever. Well, then Monday morning, we wake up and it's just pouring sideways, which if you've been in Kansas, the roads to get around between the pieces of walk-in, everything's just dirt roads.
Mm-hmm.
And so Monday we were completely handcuffed. Like we wound up driving like 300 miles that day trying to just find pieces that were close to gravel roads or paved roads to glass them to see if we could even possibly find a deer, because otherwise we were just going to be sitting at the house, you know. Yeah. So thankfully Monday night we got like 40-mile-an-hour winds, which helped to dry things out a little bit. Mm-hmm. But even most of Tuesday we were not able to get anywhere. It was just so slippery. Like it was just crazy mud. Well, Wednesday, it finally started to clear up. But Ethan, our camera guy, he was to be there all the way till like Sunday. Mm-hmm. So we had a week, you know, we had 7 days to hunt.
Yeah.
Well, something came up at home. And he wound up, he was going to have to leave first thing Thursday morning. So it ended up, we had Wednesday to kill.
Yeah.
For which, I mean, that was why I was there. Like, you know, I would have still stayed and hunted and still killed something. But that was why I was there, was to hunt for Jared.
Yeah.
And, you know, I wouldn't say there was pressure, you know, that's a big stage. I mean, I've hunted with camera guys and filmed for the last 10 years. But when you step up to that level, it was a big stage. And not to say that it was like, it wasn't in my head or whatever. I mean, they're all my friends and whatever. But, you know, I wanted to be able to, you know, get a kill for him and get some footage for him, whatever. And I was kind of like, man, like, this is rough. Like, we got 1 day. Yeah. And anyways, Tuesday night, right at last light, we ended up finding a big buck, really big buck. And Funky, the guy that I was hunting with, Jeremy Funky, he had spotted him. So the next morning we went back to relocate this buck. And sure enough, we get on him right at daylight. Well, he's a mega giant, like big deer.
Yeah.
And so Jeremy and Ethan take off after him. Like they're on the hunt, and it's going to be a long stalk. So I'm, well, there goes my chances of killing anything for whitetail adrenaline, because I knew he was going to be on that. Either he was going to kill that deer and we were going to spend the rest of the day taking care of that deer, or he was not going to kill that deer and he had the camera guy for the rest of the day. So I was like, I was pissed. I wasn't upset about it. I was pumped for him, because if he would have killed that deer, it would have been amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I was kind of like, dang, like, well, this is the end of this journey, you know, essentially. It wasn't meant to be for me this year. You know, I wasn't going to kill one for them. And I'm driving around and I glass this piece of public, walk in, and I'm sitting there, and I hadn't talked to Meg much since I've been on this trip. And the day before had been our anniversary. And I was like, I should just call her. Like, we talked that night, but I was like, I should just call her quick. I think she's not working right now. Like, I'll call her quick. So I just pulled off on the side of this road. And I mean, out there you can see for miles.
Oh, yeah.
But I just pulled over after I finished glassing this piece, and I'm just sitting there. And I call her, and we're talking for like 15 minutes. And, you know, I was kind of telling her what was going down, you know, like, yeah, like, unfortunately, it's probably not going to happen for me on camera this year. Like, it's going to be one of them deals, you know, it wasn't meant to be this year. And she's like, well, that's fine. You know, like, you can still film for yourself and, you know, whatever, like, go kill one. And there was a lot in there. Like, I mean, I had been on a couple stocks. I went on one really cool drop time buck, and like, it was cool. Like, we had some other really crazy stuff that happened.
Yeah.
Throughout the days before. And I was like, you know, I'm blessed. I'm thankful, like, kind of recentered myself. And I was like, the end of the day, this was still a sick opportunity that I'll talk about forever, whether I kill one or not.
Yeah.
And I mean, it wasn't 3 seconds later. I looked up, and coming across the cut Milo field from the private was my buck, and he was running a doe right at me, and wound up running her into this real tall, thick, nasty, like tumbleweeds and Milo. It was bird habitat that they had planted.
Okay.
Like where they had Milo, but I wouldn't say planted. It was just like Milo and a lot of big tumbleweeds that were like, up to your head. And he runs her in there. Well, there was a strip of like short Milo that was maybe like thigh high.
Mm-hmm.
After so I'm like, babe, I gotta go. Big buck just came. Which again, I owed my Missouri deer to her because she kicked me out. And then this one to her, because if I hadn't called, dude, I would have been gone. Like I was literally driving to leave that piece to go to another one. And I was like, I should call her. And I called her, and 5 minutes later, this buck runs and beds this doe in the Milo 200 from the car. Had no clue I was there. I never pulled up. I was just sitting there when he ran in.
Right.
And it was a fiasco. Like I said, I can't get into too much encrypted details, but wound up Jared and Chancey were hunting almost over 2 hours away.
Yeah.
Called Ethan to see if he could come film me to kill him. So I'm like, dude, he's bedded at 200 yards from the truck. Like, I think I can kill this deer. And he's like, dude, I can't. We're on this big one. Like, I can't. We're a mile and a half back in at this point. Like, I can't. Like, okay. So I called Jared. They talked me into waiting, because essentially I called Jared to be like, hey, I've got a big buck bedded, and I'm sorry. I don't want you to be pissed at me, but I'm going to kill him because I think I can kill him.
Yeah.
And I had really no clue how big he really was. Like, I knew he was good, but I didn't know how big he was. And I sent a phone scope video to Jared, and Jared was like, that's big deer. Like, that's bigger than you think. I think I told him he was like 140s. He was like, yeah, that deer's bigger than you think. And they talked me into waiting for him to drive 2 hours to get there.
Oh no.
Buck's bedded at 200 yards. And it was a fiasco, man. Like, the fact that that buck stayed bedded for 2 hours while I'm sitting there glassing him, all I can just see is his rack sticking up out of the Milo.
Yeah.
And sure enough, winds up Jared got there. Long story short, it was one of the sickest stalks like ever, I think, because we had no wind. That was our problem. We're in head high, like chest high tumbleweeds.
Yeah.
And Milo. And we had like a high of 5 mile-an-hour winds. And so like it was brutal, slow going to get as close as we needed. Wound up, I think it was 4 different times I got to inside of 30 yards from that deer while he was bedded. And his doe would stand up and reposition and move. And every time I couldn't see his body.
Oh.
Because all I could see was his rack and his ears.
Yeah.
And it was crazy. Finally wound up getting into like 24 yards, and it was wild. I had to hold my bow for like 2 minutes and 45 seconds. I was at full draw with him looking right at me, and finally stepped around the bush, and I shot him right here. And
oh my gosh.
Complete pass through from right here, like all the way out. Done.
That is awesome.
Thickest footage of all time. There was so much other crazy stuff that happened, but Jared crushed the footage. I mean, right over the shoulder, filming him through my bow when I shot him, and it was one of the wildest hunts ever, I think.
So 2027, that'll be coming out?
Probably something like that.
Okay. All right. 2027. So you got a little taste of it there for all the listeners. You got a little taste of it.
Part of it. Jared wouldn't be mad at me for telling a detailed 3-hour version of that story, but
yeah.
like to keep a little suspense because there was just some that was again just one of those insanely, as if my Missouri one couldn't have been
right
meant to be.
Yep.
Like that, the series of events that lined up for me to go to Missouri, kill one in 14 hours, go to Kansas, kill one in 4 days, kill a 166-inch Boone and Crockett, my biggest buck ever, on the ground in Kansas, spot and stock, whatever you call it. And then for all the pieces to have worked the way it did, with Jared coming to film me, because I wasn't even going to see Jared the whole time we were out there. Like they were in different units. And then for me and him to get to hunt together for my first kill for Whitetail Adrenaline, like just the crazy deals that happened on that stock, that it was just so meant to be, that it was just like, I mean, there was nothing, there's no way I could ever look at that 6 days and take any credit for it.
Yeah.
Because there was a higher power that those two hunts were just meant to be. There's no way I could say that, oh, this is Tim Palmer just being out here doing his thing. Like, hell no. This was God's design that just was like, this is what is meant to be, because there was just too many mind-blowing things that happened in 6 days that I'm like, I can't take any credit for that. That was not me. That was just meant to be. And I am humbled and blessed and thankful, because I don't know what I did, but this is freaking sweet.
So the one you got out there in Kansas, that could be a shoulder mount. You get that one shoulder mounted, right?
Yeah.
Oh, you did a Euro mount on him.
Oh,
Oh my gosh,
dude,
that is massive. So I have to ask, like, what made you get a European mount instead of a shoulder mount?
I like it.
I love European mounts too.
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
I love them.
Like, honestly, this buck, like, if he didn't have the mass,
Yeah,
you know, he's a 140-inch deer.
right.
But because he's got 46, 48 inches of mass, like all the way out here on this side, like I can't even put my hand around it. Man. The end of the beam. So
it's like a little crab claw at the end.
Yeah, it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Cool deal. But he's just crazy. So part of it was, you know, I really love being able to, especially for that deer, like it's a whole nother deal when you can just hand it to somebody.
Yeah.
And they can just feel it. And also Kansas taxidermists are super smart. And so it's like $800 for a shoulder mount. Plus you got to spend like probably $300-400 to get it shipped. So it's $1,200 for a shoulder mount. And the fact that the way it worked out, he was probably, when he died, he was probably 3/4 of a mile from the truck. And we hunt out of a Honda CR-V little car. So my truck with my frame packs and all my stuff to quarter him and everything was not a car. We were literally rolling with camera gear, decoys, bows, and that was it. Like, we didn't have anything with us. So I ended up having to drive all the way back 45 minutes to the Airbnb, get my truck. We killed him like 4:00 in the afternoon, but by the time we got back and everything figured out and filmed and all that, it was late till I even got back to the Airbnb, and then got back out there to quarter him up and pack him out. And like, that deer was the biggest body. That deer was well over 300 pounds.
Jeez, man.
His was, I don't know if I sent you that picture of laying beside him. I'll have to send that to you. It was, when I laid beside him, his body looked like it was twice as thick as mine. He was like, for reference, my Missouri deer, I fit all 4 quarters, neck roast, back straps, loins, whole 9 yards. Every bit of meat I fit in my one frame pack.
Right.
We filled 2 full frame packs from this buck.
Oh my gosh.
Jeez.
That's a big boy.
How many freezers do you have at your house?
Just one big.
One big. Oh man,
That's a good question.
that is that's a valid. Like,
that's a
you
valid
got
question
shot all
for
these
everyone.
deers. Like, how many freezers do you have?
Yeah, just big chest freezer, but we eat a lot of it. We eat through it so fast. But
Dude, you
yeah,
had
it was just an insane trip, man. I couldn't be more thankful. I think last year, it's funny because we did the podcast after my season last year where I went to Pete. I killed 2 in I think 8 days or something.
Yeah.
You know, and back to back 2 hunts, 2 kills, and then like this year I essentially it was almost the same thing. Went to Missouri, killed, right to Kansas, killed, and it was cool. Like I'm just very, again, thankful and humble and blessed, and you know, it was wild, man.
Dude, yeah, you definitely had a wild 6 days. Wild 6
say
days
that.
your season, man. That was
Yeah.
intense. So how do people follow you, check out your YouTube channel, all that kind of stuff to follow up with you?
Yeah, so it's Buckin Obsessed, Buckin_obsessed on Instagram, and then Buckin Obsessed on YouTube. And like the Kansas hunt won't be on there, like I said, because that's all for Jared with Whitetail Adrenaline. I will be at Harrisburg at the outdoor show. Come by the Whitetail Adrenaline booth, check us out. You can hold on to this buck. I'm sure he'll be in there in the booth. And
I know where I'm going.
yeah, come hang, see that bad boy. And that's pretty much it. Tim Palmer, Buckin Obsessed. And then go ahead and follow Whitetail Adrenaline. Check out their website, get you some DVDs, or we have a couple seasons on digital download. Best content in the world right there. You can't beat that.
Oh, absolutely, man. Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you coming on here, telling about your season.
Yeah.
Keep hunting,
Keep fishing.
enjoy the process.